All right. Good evening,
Hello.
Shama.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I am awesome. Wonderful to see you here on the
Thank you.
latest installment of the Sharaka Morocco-Israel collaboration initiative, which we are doing in partnership with you, Shama Mijtali, Moroccan artist, entrepreneur, influencer, and peacemaker. And this is what number four that we're doing already.
Yes, this is the fourth deep dive.
Fantastic. How have you been? How's your week been?
It's been good. Lots of things happening globally. A lot of people pulling away from Spotify. Um, so there's a lot
I
going
haven't
on.
had a chance.
And
I haven't had a chance to catch up on that news yet. I just see all
yeah,
sorts of quirky artists talking about that.
indeed,
But
indeed.
hopefully we'll be okay with our webinar series on Morocco-Israel relations. So for those of you who are new and for those of you who are returning to this series, welcome. This is the webinar series to launch or to promote Morocco-Israel cooperation and relations across a range of topics. This is our deep dive number 4, where today we'll be talking about the fields of youth and entrepreneurship. Of course, we are Sharaka. We are an organization founded by young leaders from the Abraham Accord countries, from the UAE, from Bahrain, from Morocco, and from Israel, in order to promote a warm peace, to promote people-to-people relations, so that these amazing peace accords, the most positive development in decades, maybe even more than decades, in a century, certainly in the Middle East, doesn't just stay on the governmental level, but it really trickles down and translates to the people. And what we're trying to do here on this series of events is help translate into specific areas. We tackled business and investment. We talked about tech and agriculture. Last week we had the arts and culture. And today we'll be doing, as we said, youth and entrepreneurship. It's an exciting time for Sharaka. We have this coming week, or as soon as the weekend is over, we have a wonderful delegation of Emirati influencers and young leaders coming to Israel for the first time. We have groups ready to go to the United States on speaking tours that will comprise Emiratis and Bahrainis and Moroccans and Israelis and Saudis, and looking to continue promoting this peace concept. And of course, all of this is in preparation for what we hope will be very soon. People say God willing, but we'll say COVID willing. Um, as soon as we can get the first Israeli cultural delegation to go to Morocco through
Culture
Sharaka,
and entrepreneurship.
culture and entrepreneurship and all sorts of fantastic people to go and build these bridges. And so I'll hand it over to you now, Shama.
Indeed. Indeed. And with that, we have to celebrate the news of the reopening of Moroccan borders, which will start next. It's very exciting. I would like to welcome everyone once again to our fourth deep dive and our fifth event in our Morocco Israel cooperation series, exploring the potential and possibilities for collaboration and synergy across different fields, sectors, and industries. The goal here is to really foster more regional cooperation, deepen mutual understanding, and increase mutual trust and investment, emotional, social, and financial, in both countries. And with that, I would like to introduce our main topic of discussion today, which is youth and entrepreneurship. Both Morocco and Israel have a young population and understand that investing in youth is the best policy decision to guarantee a prosperous future. Young people in both countries confront a series of interconnected challenges in education, economic and workforce development, civic engagement, and participatory governance, and as well as community resilience, identity politics, and belonging issues, especially if you're from a minority group, which we know both in Morocco and Israel are very, very full of. And I'm excited to introduce you today to a group of phenomenal young people, entrepreneurs, civil society activists, youth and empowerment advocates, and really champions of change in their own contexts and communities. But first, we'd like to invite someone who has worked on the policy level of things and has been advocating for a better Middle East and North Africa in her role as an American diplomat. Then we'd like to introduce Kim, who's with us, I believe. Kim, can you hear us? Can you see us?
Hi,
Beautiful.
Kim.
Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
So we're welcome. We're happy to introduce Kim Natoli, director of the American Center in Jerusalem, a native New Yorker. Did I do that right?
Yeah,
And,
I can't even do that
well. You should have heard me when I was in Boston. A lot of people were offended. Culture and press. Kim has served in positions in China, Bosnia, Russia, Germany, Italy, and was a political advisor to the High Representative in Bosnia. Spent 2 years in Al-Hila in South Central Iraq, doing public outreach, and was the senior U.S. representative to the provincial government in Uruzgan, Afghanistan. I'm sure you've got a lot of stories. And served as Mission Pakistan's Countering Violent Extremism coordinator. In Washington, Kim served as a senior advisor to the ambassador for combating trafficking in persons, and then as director of the Office for Global Youth Issues. Kim, thank you for joining us. And that sounds like a fascinating resume, and the last issue especially connects to what we're doing here tonight. We'd be glad to hear about the United States' role in strengthening youth entrepreneurship and assisting in solving employment challenges in the region.
Thank you, Sean. And I've been following your podcast, and I'm so happy to distinguished group of guests to talk about the different ways we can promote regional cooperation under the auspices of the Abraham Accords. The work doing, as well as said from my body, close to my heart. You can, when as director of the Global Youth Issues Office in Washington, we tend to look at our audience-based, yes? And so we, I got into this role, and okay, your audience is youth, which 3+ billion people in all countries in the world who have a lot of things in common, but also have a lot of differing issues. So it was quite a challenge, but it was something that I believe is the most important way to tackle any of the global issues today is by doing so together and with, as you said, Sharaka, born by and I think really the most important audience to address. So we have a new U.S. ambassador, Israel, Ambassador Thomas. And he recently participated in court, which included officials and ambassadors from Israel, and will be expanded in the future. Ambassador Knives has repeatedly stressed the United States' desire to continue to prevent all of the Abraham and benefits under these agreements. Things like technology tracks are all potential avenues to work together going forward. And I'm proud to say the American Center in Jerusalem, which I'm the new director, will play a role in a number of these avenues. So the American Center, AC, love their acronyms, is a space for Israel's community to come together to build relationships. And we're hoping to work to others from the Abraham's Accord. As I am and when I first met in one of her many roles, you said, in one of her many hats, as an artist, who is, again, another acronym, SOHO, which I really like being in New Yorker. God, see, you do it better.
Kim, if I may just stop you, I think
Zippy Mizrahi was talking about.
Beautiful. It came back.
Okay.
Shama, say that again. Sorry.
Should I go back or continue?
Sorry, I think we lost your video, Kim, for a little bit, but it came back. So perfect.
So go ahead. We just lost the feed for a bit. The feed cut out for a bit, but you're back. You're fine now.
Okay.
That's fantastic. And I assumed the United States was doing such things around the world, but I've never actually gotten that full breakdown. And I think it's brilliant use of soft power and it's at its best. Very briefly, how do you see how do you seek to support these new Moroccan-Israeli relationships going forward, and facilitating these relationships vis-a-vis the global youth challenges?
100%. Thank you so much for reiterating that message, because that's really essential to what we're doing, what we're hoping to do more of. And thank you for your support and for the American Embassy's support in advancing peace and prosperity in the region. And I just want to tell you, Kim, stay tuned, because we are going to show a range of really incredible individuals who are just dedicated to empowering and helping youth and transforming their communities, including someone who's worked with Made in JLM. So she's going to join us as well. So thank you, Kim, for your support and
Thank
for
you so much,
joining
Kim.
us in the discussion today.
I'll get your info and we'll be glad to connect. Thank you so much.
Amazing. So next, I'd like to introduce you to Noah Ohayon Bab. Noah is an entrepreneur, a marketing specialist, and a future of work expert and community builder. She is the head of people at Shopify, was the head of employer brand and internal communication at eBay. She's also the co-founder of a leading social media career initiative in Israel with over 100,000 followers, the largest of its kind in Israel. Noah has 15 years of leadership experience in both tech and nonprofit sectors. She worked at the Edmund Rothschild Foundation and Hebrew University in leadership development and community building. Noah has become quite a leading figure in the Israeli high-tech ecosystem as well. She is a popular speaker at conferences and events, as well as a very sought-after professional advisor and mentor for several startups and institutes, and is constantly working towards bridging gaps in the workforce. Noah, it's a pleasure to have you.
Hi, pleasure to be here.
Hi, good to see you. Thank you for joining.
I need you as my alarm clock. I like just to like reinforce those messages. You are capable. Yes. You're able. You're not an imposter syndrome. Yeah.
I will send you that exact voice message tonight. Thank you for joining us, dear. I want to start with the personal level here. Noah, you were born in a Moroccan family who migrated to Israel in 1940 with 10 siblings on both sides of the family. You mentioned to me that your dad was out of the picture and you grew up pretty poor in a single parent home, worried about not having enough. But you realized at a young age that while you can't control the cards you were given, you can control how you learn and react to those cards. How did you change your circumstances? And what led you to entrepreneurship specifically, into motivating people to find a job and find professional alignment and professional fulfillment?
Yeah, wow. So it's like I'm gonna squeeze like a lifelong story, but I would say like my initial motivation and what I really wanted to do in life was actually like being an educator. If to be specific, I wanted to be like the minister of education in Israel. That was like my ultimate dream, and like the path into entrepreneurship and tech in general was like was really much brought in that. And as you mentioned, I know I got like certain opportunities that really allowed me to have a social mobility, which is not given at all. Even if there are options out there, and what you're doing is definitely one of them. But I thought, I was like blessed with like good opportunities along the way, and I would want to offer that to youth as well. And I started in education, and at the same time, I started working for the Rothschild Foundation. And the Rothschild Foundation does pretty much the same. I actually worked in an organization that built entrepreneurs into being their own entrepreneurs, taking students from disadvantaged background, giving them scholarship, very generous one, so they can focus on their school, and at the same time going through an entrepreneur program to lead, for them to be leaders in their own field. We had people from all over, from studying to being doctors, studying to be like lawyers, accounting, social science, humanities, wherever they want to be, just being equipped with that knowledge and improving others people's lives. And the interesting thing is, while I was working in an entrepreneur school, I was also graduating myself from Hebrew University, my master's, and I saw people around me just like finishing putting their hard work into higher education, believing that there is a red carpet being rolled for them once they graduate, and unfortunately realizing there's no red carpet. You finish and you need to actually like build your career, and it doesn't. Higher education doesn't matter a lot. It's very important, but it's not it's an essential, but not enough criteria for to have a successful career. And that's where me and my friend just sat in Jerusalem, a cold night in our living room, thinking about our friends graduating, struggling to find a job, a career, while we were receiving this email from another philanthropic organization called Schusterman Foundation. And we both finished their leadership program. And then for those who graduated, they sent opportunities, career opportunities, speaking opportunities, and so on. And we felt like we want to break that circle and kind of expand the circle of people being exposed to those prestigious opportunities. And that's where we started our Facebook page. Definitely did not meant to go viral. We never thought about the amount of followers. Even now, ask me, like, I don't know the exact number. I know it's like about 100K, but we never cared about any of that. We just really wanted to give an equal access. Hi Ruth, to give an equal opportunity for people who are graduating, specifically humanities studies and social science, because we felt for like people who are graduating engineering and stuff like that, they get some opportunities to itself. And we always joke that we became entrepreneurs not really by choice, because we saw a problem, we wanted to solve for it, and we just opened the most closest thing. In 2011, I just want to make it clear, Facebook was alive and was the main venue for people to communicate and to recruit. And And that's what we do until this day. We publish about 20, 30 job opportunities. We don't charge any side, even though it could be a business model very easily. And this is kind of what led me into learning about the workforce of the future, what organizations are looking for when they want to hire, what struggles job seekers are going through when they want to find a job, and kind of being in the, like a middle woman in between those two parts. And just to tap into like the beginning of my story, so I wanted to be an educator, and then I was working for the Rothschild Foundation. I was also like teacher, high school teacher. And I think the biggest gap I experience is how, unfortunately, most educational systems are preparing our youth for future of work in very old methodologies, right? Like how much has changed since, like the Industrial Revolution? Not a lot. We teach in mostly in same manners, in same way. We're still based on memorizing information where, like they don't need us for information. They have the information. My 4-year-old son and 7-year-old daughter, they have all the information at the tip of their palms. This is not why we are there, why our schools are there, why educators are there. And then after giving giving birth for the first time, I realized that as much as I'm definitely passionate about education, I still see myself as an educator. Not having this really strong technological background, understanding how this world works, and kind of bringing those worlds closer together, missing out on a huge chunk. So this is where I kind of pivoted into tech. Because I had this social media initiative, it was easier for me to kind of to make that change into tech. And I did start in marketing and social media because I knew a lot about it. And from there, later on, moved to leadership roles. I worked for startups. There was also around developing small, medium-sized businesses in the local economy. And then I worked for eBay, which again, I chose that company because I think it's a company that gives financial independency wherever you are, right? You just open a store. And then I moved into Shopify for the exact same reason. Shopify is a company that really gives tools for people to become their own entrepreneurs and become their own business owners. And it's just amazing being able to use technology and get to people anywhere, wherever they are on the globe, and giving them those tools, and just having the ability to own their life. And as also you mentioned my personal story, I do think that being enablers, I think it's the biggest thing we can do as society, and making sure we bring to the center as much as possible people from shoulders of society, if it's theoretical or sometimes even physical, if they don't live at the center of our a main city, and so on.
Absolutely. And so we will actually be tackling that very same topic with some of our panelists today. But tell me, Noah, since you mentioned the future of work, I really want to ask you, and you are an expert in this topic, and this is a topic that both the UAE and Morocco are really excited about and really promote across different spaces. So I want to ask you about the future of work and cooperation in this post-pandemic, more interconnected world powered by Zoom and other technology. How do you envision collaboration between startup ecosystems in Morocco and Israel now that there are much less borders and barriers than before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, that's a really great topic. And I do think, every conversation around COVID is, bringing that question, is COVID, blessing in disguise, right? I don't know if it can go that far, but it definitely brought some interesting opportunities and different way of thinking. And again, I did mention I work for a global corporate, Shopify, and we're 100% remote, the entire company. We're officeless, and this is just one example of many companies that are kind of moving into that area. It does allow you, to hire from anywhere, and which is amazing because really we get people from all around. But then again, how do you build those relationships kind of being so far apart? So I'd say, again, in general, I think one of the really interesting concept when you think of future of work is everything related to being decentralized. Okay, being decentralized is, I think, in past days, even if you think of any example, okay, let's take even like banks or finance. So you got your salary, you needed someplace to put it, somewhere you trust, and so you would go to a bank. You would trust those people usually. You wouldn't even mind paying a fee, sometimes even like a high fee, because you felt like this is a place where you can trust, and this is the system. But now, even if you think, I like even the example of, for example, like of blockchain or any like distributed currency. Okay, most people know of Bitcoin, and before it became something that you kind of trade, the concept of it was that you're not dependent on the banking system anymore, and you are able to have a really progressive system that you can trust on it because it's highly encrypted, and then you don't need this middleman, you don't need a bank, you don't need to pay those fees, and again, your money is to your own. It's not it's not owned by someone else that tells you when you can take it out and so on. And again, I don't want to get too much into that example, but this is a concept that I think just the thinking of decentralization, and so also work. Now you can work from a company anywhere, and the concept of digital nomad, being able to, the world is your home, right? Not necessarily a specific country. So if you can live anywhere and you can work anywhere and you can have your finance anywhere, so it's just like it's a different way of thinking of being a citizen of the world. And I think it's going to be like this is an area I'm deeply passionate about, and see where it's going to take us. And to your question, I think it means a lot, right? This is like, it creates new areas to work together on different startup and different areas. Being borderless. Now again, the borders are open, which is amazing. I always dreamt of visiting in Morocco and taste, couscous where it should be tasted. But now again, you can have those connections even without necessarily traveling, and you can have mutual ventures that are not necessarily just attached to one country. Some things are definitely, like mutual, that are a common area because we are countries in the Middle East, and I don't know, we have certain climate and we have certain kind of gaps that are maybe similar, and we can work in together. And some of them are just like global challenges that we can try and solve together, regardless to a certain location. So definitely excited about where things can head to together, and
Amazing. Thank you so much, Noah. I got so excited when you mentioned decentralized technologies and blockchain and crypto, because I have been going kind of down on that rabbit hole really, really deep. So it's just very exciting to hear you speak about that as essential to the future of work. And I'm excited to also connect with the blockchain crypto community in Morocco to see what they're working on, because there's definitely a lot.
Yeah.
A lot happening.
I worked for a blockchain company in 2016 where like literally no one knew what Bitcoin was. And like, if I would only listen to my friends there, they were like nerds back then. Now they're
they're the coolest. Yeah.
So I'm definitely passionate about, like, again, even also as a concept, just like think of the opportunities of I don't know, like being a global citizens. But
very exciting. Thank you so much, Noah, for joining us today. This was really, really
Thank you so much.
We could talk to you forever.
Thank you for being you.
Thank you. Take care.
So who do we have next, Shama?
Next is someone really incredible, Ayman Sharagi. Ayman, we joke around that he's the perfect MENA profile, because he's Moroccan but was born and grew up in Oman. He speaks Khaliji accents and North African accents. And Ayman is a youth and civil society expert, political communication advisor, and a business consultant. He works with different national and international CSOs and NGOs in Morocco and the MENA region on transforming their capacity building and social innovation models for youth. He launched and worked on many projects related to youth strategies, civic engagement, and public policy analysis. Ayman, are you with us? Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Welcome.
So good to have you with us. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And Ayman, I want to start with sort of exploring the civil society landscape in Morocco. What does it look like specifically in urban centers today? And what are the biggest challenges facing young Moroccans?
Well, the civil society space is really, really booming. I mean, latest statistics, we're speaking about more than 250,000 non-profits in Morocco, which is a huge number. And the civil society is really expanding, a lot of interesting projects, but it needs more, I will say, professionalization. A lot of work is done, but things have not reached a level where it will scale up. I can say for sure that maybe we have 1,000, 1,500 nonprofits that are really professional, that have long-standing impact on the ground, and that they can be also huge fundraisers, either nationally or on an international level. And they serve youth, and they have a lot of youth-led projects and initiatives. Now, when we speak about Moroccan youth, like, they make up more than a third of the Moroccan population, and we have a huge part of them, approximately more than 2 million, who are, according to the High Commissioner, RCP, and also through other official numbers, they are what we call needs. So they are neither in education nor in training, nor are they have a specific skill set. So, which makes them at the margin of the development dynamics. So under these conditions, we are not profiting from more than 2 million young Moroccans. Some of them get frustrated, marginalized, they want to leave the country, and many fall into delinquency, extremism, even suffer psychologically from that. But another portion, they have interesting projects. So if they are not skilled in education, they are definitely skilled and business oriented. So what we're lacking is that we need more prosperous environments for Moroccan youth to explore their entrepreneurial mindsets, skills, think clearly, and participate in the economic and things are going quite interestingly in the last years. We have a huge national program called Intilaqa for funding young startups and entrepreneurs. We have also a lot of incubators that are booming. They are either national, private owned, or non-profits driven. So there is an interesting dynamic. And to explore the potential between Morocco and Israel, and also between all the Abraham Accords partners, I will say that we can really, or youth from all sides can really benefit from this new chapter of relationships we are opening with each other. Israel is known to be the startup nation, and Morocco also have a very promising startup ecosystem. And I'm sure that a lot of interesting projects and joint ventures can be worked out of this collaboration. So there are already some projects who have been put in place, like for example between universities, creating university incubators for students to develop their projects while they are still conducting their studies. We have also some specific international programs that also can reunite Moroccan-Israeli, but also American actors who can develop nice startup ecosystems and entrepreneurial projects. And we can also think about what areas of business can be created from this dynamic. And if you remember, I think in the first Sharaka event, you received Einat Levy from the Israeli embassy here in Morocco, and she stated clearly that the opportunities, for example, for young entrepreneurs from both sides can be either we have a huge potential in agriculture and agribusiness. We have also huge opportunities in the renewable energy sector, aviation and aerospace, digital transformation, automotive, mobile and smart cities projects, water management systems. So these are really fundamentally important fields to develop. And if we have several startups growing up over the next 5 to 10 years, I am sure that the potential can be huge, and young Moroccans can really benefit from this new dynamics. We just need smart projects, smart people working in teams, collaborating, and making things happen on the field.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ayman. So I have another question for you. I want to know, where do you see the most potential for Moroccan-Israeli collaboration? I know that this is something that you really deeply care about, and that you're very convicted and invested in advancing peace and prosperity in the region. So where do you see the most potential going forward?
I would say three major potentially interesting areas of collaboration between either private actors from Morocco and Israel, or even public institutions from both sides. I see a huge room for collaboration and for also added value in terms of, I will say, arts and culture. This can be a very prosperous and very interesting business to invest in. We have a shared heritage, a shared culture, shared music, shared even sometimes in terms of culinary and design and clothing also characteristics. So definitely arts and culture. This can be very interesting. Secondly, I would say also Agritech and Agribusiness. I mean, we both have issues in dealing with water scarcity, how to make the most out of a hectare, for example, of an agricultural land. So I'm sure that also in terms of Agritech and Agribusiness, there is an interesting room for collaboration. And third of all, I will say also in terms of fintech and using technology in order to enhance financial inclusion, especially of people who live in rural areas or don't have access to banking, I will say, services or insurance services, but they have access to technology. So how can we ensure financial inclusion for them? And we have interesting startups from both sides and companies who can work on that. Moreover, both we have 9 nice financial centers. In Morocco, we launched a few years ago Casablanca Finance City, and we are aiming to become a financial hub in the African continent. And I'm sure that these 3 areas, for me, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, are the most interesting and prosperous ones that we can see flourishing in the very near future.
Amazing. Incredible. Thank you so much, Ayman. And because you mentioned Agritech, I do invite our viewers to go check out the deep dive discussion we did on agricultural and technology.
And if they're at it, they can, if you didn't, check out all the deep dive discussions and the intro session that we did. They were all fascinating, each in their own individual way, and they're all on Sharaka's social media accounts and Shama's social media accounts. So you're welcome to check them out there. Ayman, thank you for that really fantastic overview of what's happening in Morocco in the sense and the potential for how you see things can play out with Israel.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Ayman.
And in that, we'll use that to jump over to the kind of mirror view from what's happening in Israel regarding youth organizations. And we'd like to invite our next guest, Mr. Shlomi Castro.
Hi.
Hi, Shlomi. Nice to see you.
Hi, Shlomi.
Again, hi, how are you?
Fantastic. Shlomi we had the pleasure of working with Shlomi and Sharaka in putting together a conference in the UAE recently, where Shlomi brought over a delegation of about 20 leaders, CEOs or senior people from different Israeli youth organizations, and we connected them with various Emirati counterparts involved in education, in youth development, in societal responsibility, in environmental responsibility. And I think we put together a pretty nice, incredible event from
we are.
all the feedback we saw. So it's good to see you again. Shlomi Castro is the Director General of the Israeli Council of Youth Organizations. In that capacity, he leads all its aspects, manages the joint table of directors of the youth organizations, and promotes cooperation with and between the various organizations. In his previous positions, he founded the Gal Pre-Military Academy, these kind of leadership academies we have here in Israel, and was a project manager in the Acharai, or the Follow Me youth program that integrates Israelis of Ethiopian descent or Ethiopian origin into Israeli society, and has a master's degree in public policy and a bachelor's degree in Oriental and political science from Tel Aviv University. Shlomi, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to Sharaka, for we have a journey, like something like 1 year that we are working together. It's such exciting, and the platform that you gave us with the UAE and now with Morocco and all of it is just amazing for us. It's a new area that opened for us. So
I agree. There's so much we can do together, especially in this field.
Yeah.
But before we get going about the youth groups, Shama wanted to ask kind of more of a personal question.
I want to start with the most important thing, okay, which is that you're also Moroccan and your parents are originally from Meknes. How is it like to grow up in Israel? And tell me, what challenges did you face as a young man, and how did you get involved in youth education, transformation, and empowerment?
She does her homework.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't live as a Moroccan, or I just born as an Israeli, and I felt Israeli but we just spoke like in the Kiddush in the Friday evening night when we were sitting. So the stories about Morocco were always there. Speak about the Arab neighbors and all the taste and how beautiful it was. They live there a beautiful time, and they have a great childhood over there. So most of the stories are really great stories. And actually, in my BA and MA, so I study about North Africa. So we've been there. We've been in Morocco. So it was a great journey for me to be in the Mlah, in Meknes, and to see the place where my father actually studied, and then to be to Casablanca and to understand, that it's quite, like Casablanca is Tel Aviv, and Meknes it's kind of I don't know, Netanya, maybe Jerusalem, more religious and all of it. So it's interesting. Here in Israel, I think that we are dealing with this, like with the story. It's that we think, as a Moroccan, as a second generation of Moroccans, that they have a great childhood there, and they have a great neighbors over there, but they decide to come to Israel as a decision, and they didn't run away from Morocco. And this is the kind of mindset that I'm living with. So Morocco is a great place, and the Jewish community were there. They have a great time, and this is maybe very connected to what we will speak and how we can collaborate with Morocco. For me to be like, when I've been in Morocco, I felt home. Actually, I just felt home over there. Seriously. So yeah.
That's incredible. Hopefully I'll get to experience the feeling too soon.
So as Iraqi, okay, we're not.
You cannot never, you need to change your identity, but come with me.
Pass Moroccan then.
Thanks. I actually spent a good 2 or 3 years of my life being a member of a Moroccan synagogue, and so maybe even more, maybe 4 or 5 years. So I actually got to know the Moroccan way of praying and all the melodies probably better than I know any other different groups melodies.
But speaking about youth, actually, I just say, I'm now living in Kochav Yair, which is not the area with a lot of Israelis, Moroccan or second generation. But anyway, what I feel here, that the youth are really interesting, in this area. Like, and we started after the journey with you, Dan, and with Amit and the Sharaka. We're thinking a lot about that the youth in Israel need a second floor of the identity. You know, when you live in Israel, you live in Israel, but your mindset is European or is a USA one, you know, United States one. But actually, we live here, we live in the region, and if we will try, we're just trying now, you know, where when we've been in the UAE. So when we've been in the airport, we just thought about it. You know, it's such a close. This is the first time that we fly east. You know, in Israel, when you fly always west, and then you fly east, and you think about it. Wow, it will be great if in each youth he will have more, you know, a capacity of his identity, which is a region one. So yeah, we have a lot of work with it, you know. But in Israel,
yeah, it's a fascinating point, and it's true. You know, this is these accords have allowed for the first time Israelis as a whole to be able to look to the rest of the region and feel like we're part of the region, and many of us who are familially connected to the region, whose parents or grandparents, or even some of us came from different countries in the region, for the first time we can really feel like we're a part of that, and then we can now openly connect with other peoples, with youth, with other kinds of collaborations from the region. Let me ask you, you mentioned the youth here in Israel. As the person who probably has maybe one of the people who has the best kind of bird's eye view of the youth group, youth movement ecosystem here in Israel, can you give us a brief overview of what's out there in Israel? How does it work?
Yeah.
And then give us after that maybe how does it work as far as your organization and the various organizations that work under your umbrella, collaborations with other countries? We'd be glad to hear about that.
First, you know, each country will say it, but Israel is really unique country. This is a children countries. You know, 30% of the population here in Israel, they are childrens, you know, which is very, you know, when you're looking to Europe and all of this, so it's very unique. And this is the first thing that we need to say. The other thing is that Israel have a good, very good public school education system, but we have something like 106 vacation day, which said that we have like a lot of time, plenty of time actually, with a lot of children. So this is the point where we start. And when you're looking on it, so you can say this is a great opportunity to shape the future with these children. So yes, in Israel, there is a lot of youth organization and youth movements. You know, when you're thinking about Israel were built by youth organization and youth movements, and it's still here, like all over. But actually, like in the last 10 or 20 years, something happened, you know. There were the narrative one, the politics youth movement that were like the main issue. And in the last 10 or 20 years, actually, after Rabin actually murder, it was like a big explosion with the youth things. We just understand that we should do something with it. And a lot of youth organizations just arrive. And what is interesting about youth organization that they are different. They have a mission. They're taking on them a national mission. It could be saving life. It could be culture. It could be touring and trekking like Israel and the area. So this is very unique about it. And the second thing is that what we understand that the economic gaps in Israel, it's a huge problem, and we deal with it. So the youth organization like always look to the periphery, to the diaspora, and asking themselves like 64% of our centers are in the periphery. So you know, it means that we should have a lot of trainers that can deal with this and understand it. So this is like a kind of some points about Israel and the youth organization. Yeah, I can say that, you know, actually, when we're speaking about youth organization, so there is a lot of after-school activities in Israel. But when we're speaking about youth organization and youth movement, so you're speaking about a non-formal education for values, all right? So like each of these organization most of them are NGO, and all of them actually NGO. He took on himself a kind of value that he said, this is what I want to do. And it's interesting because there is like a lot of religion youth organization that combine between the religion and engagement for the society and volunteers and all of this. And there is some of them that say the values of pluralism, of Judaism pluralism. So yeah, the youth organization in the last 20 years are there is a various of instrument that they use. And us as an umbrella organization, so you just trying to speak with the government and to ask them, like, to support it. And actually in Israel, seriously, it's like, it's happening. Like the Minister of Education decided 10 years ago that he must do something with it, and it's supported with a lot of money, millions of money of shekels here. And yeah, that's in a brief, Yeah.
Where do you see the potential for collaboration our youth, various youth movements and organizations can have with Moroccans, especially after listening to what kind of Ayman's presentation about this very developed world in the Morocco sense? How do you see that kind of playing out maybe over the next year? Maybe we'll be organizing a conference together also in Morocco soon.
Yeah. I think that, like, for me, I don't really know Morocco, like in this area. I'm just starting now to know Morocco about it. But if we will find a partners that want to deal with the things of identity and a region identity, So I think youth organizations in the non-formal education, this is a great area to do it. It's a great area, and we have great potential to do it. The second thing is that we're dealing a lot here in Israel and in the youth organization with the shared society, because mostly between Arabs, Muslims, and Jewish, and ultra Orthodox and all of it. So we just yesterday actually we celebrate a new incubator for a shared society and for youth. So I think that we know we're dealing with it something like 3 or 4 years, how to do it, and how we should speak about identity, and how we can live as a youth here in Israel, as in Arabs and as in Jewish. Everything is not that everything is fixed, but we are going to dealing with it. So this incubator, actually, it's something that we can collaborate, we can, speak about it, we can, share information. And the third thing is that I think I'm sure that there is a lot of knowledge in Morocco, and we should learn, and we can study. But in our area, actually, we had the instruments that we used, like saving life, like culture, like touring, like scouts, and all of this. I think, and how we are combined between, let's say, between values and the mission. It's something that I think that we can speak about. And the last thing is that Israel, as you know, Dan, you know it, and Shama also know it, that Israel always deal with emergencies. And I think that in the last 10 years, the youth organization have a national program how to deal and how we get involved, the youth, in emergencies time. So this is a kind of practice that maybe best practice that we can share with our partners in Morocco and UAE.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Shlomi.
And on that last note, I did meet representatives from Magen David Adom, and I have close friends with United Hatzalah, and I see the impact of those run programs for emergency services. In fact, one of my best friends works as a volunteer, as a medic and a firefighter. So I see just how radical that program is. And when we talk specifically about medical emergencies and like natural disasters, that is something that we really need to improve on in Morocco. So for sure, thank you so much, Shlomi, and
Thank you so much, Shlomi.
specifically for presenting the challenge of pluralism and kind of wrestling with multiple identities and what that means for Israel, which is located in the Middle East and has now has to kind of grapple with these identity issues. And I just want to plug in the Moroccan Constitution very briefly. Under the leadership of His Majesty, the reforms of the Constitution that happened in 2011 were really transformational for Moroccan society and healing, and sort of started this reconciliatory process for Moroccan society, where for the first time it recognized the Amazigh community, Amazigh language as an official language next to Arabic, and recognized the Jewish history and the Jewish component of Morocco as a nation with a very long story and history with the Jewish community. So I think that there are some good practices there that Morocco could perhaps export to Israel and other places. So thank you so much for a very interesting and open conversation, Shlomi. And we look forward to seeing you in Morocco.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shlomi.
Bye, Shama. Bye, Dan.
Thank you. And next, I would like to introduce Omar Asso, who is the Executive Director of Association Jeunesse Tamdolt, a consultant for civil society organizations. He was a 2012 MEPI Leader for Democracy Fellow at AUB, the American University of Beirut, and a 2015 ACYPL Fellow. He's a civil society activist who's working as the Human Resources Officer of the Mediterranean Youth Climate Network and the Vice Secretary of the Moroccan Youth Climate Movement. Omar has participated in many national and international programs, conferences, and workshops on youth engagement, youth integration, and empowerment. Omar, can you hear me? Are you with us?
I don't think he's on the call yet. Why don't we move on to the next guest, and we'll work on figuring out where Omar is.
Sounds good. In that case, I think Ruth is with us. So would you like to introduce her, Dan?
Gladly. Let's just make sure she is here indeed. Hi, Ruth.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Ruth.
So we have with us Ruth Moati, an impact advocate. Ooh, that's cool. I like that title. Dedicated to harnessing the Israeli spirit of innovation to global causes and turning Israel into the world's impact nation. In 2019, Ruth was appointed to be Israel's youth delegate to the United Nations, where she got the incredible opportunity to share the accomplishments, concerns, and aspirations of her generation with the international community. Ruth is dedicated to strengthening Israel's youth involvement in the achievement of the 2030 UN SDGs. She's an active member of the Israeli Forum for Impact Economy, producing the Double Impact podcast, and also working on an Instagram campaign about impact and youth that will launch soon. So stay tuned for that. Ruth is now leading and managing a legal social organization that promotes civil rights, accessibility to the community, and particularly to vulnerable populations. The Brera Center operates a network of over 100 volunteers and collaborates with leading law firms and NGOs. So welcome, Ruth. Now, you've combined diplomacy and social entrepreneurship to promote Israeli social impact over the world. Maybe you can share with us how you see this impact affecting Moroccan-Israeli societies, and as we kind of launch into these new relations, where can you see this going?
So hi, Dan. Hi, Shama. Thank you very much for having me. And I see this vision for Israel to be an impact nation, part of a bigger vision of a new Middle East, which of course Morocco and the very strong relationship that Morocco have with the Jewish people is a significant part of this vision. And I think that the youth is a global youth more than ever. And I think that all the challenges that we have, whether if it's social or environmental, we need to work together to solve it. We can't have people just focusing on their own little problem. We need to think globally, and we need to look at our region and what is happening in our region. And I'm very happy that we are neighbors, Israel and Morocco. And that's why we should work together, because all of our shared values and geographic we're geographically close, and we have many of the same challenges when it comes to agriculture and weather. And that's a problem of the future, and that's why we need to work together today to solve them and to come up with solutions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Ruth, I could go all day singing your praises. I've seen your work, and I've gotten to get to know you really deeply and to see just how rooted you are in social impact and in transforming those challenges that affect young people, not just in Israel, but all over the world. And you've represented Israeli youth at the UN. So I want to know, what are some of the biggest challenges you worked to address during that time? And what do you continue to do and to work on? And how do you continue to empower others to also step in and solve those challenges?
So that's a great question. Well, I'll be honest, the UN is not an easy place for an Israeli. There's a stigma, there's a biased opinions that it doesn't matter what I do, what I've done in the past, why I'm here, what I believe in. Just the fact that I'm introducing myself and I say that I'm from Jerusalem and I'm an Israeli, people are not like naturally want to collaborate with you, and that is difficult. But on the other hand, there's lots of countries that see the potential, that see the special ingredient that Israelis have, and that know that to solve big problems, they need to have us with them in the table and to solve together the problems. So I think one of the most amazing things, and the reason that I am optimistic after 2 years being Israel's youth delegate, is that the youth are open-minded. The youth are not strained to the past and to opinions that, it doesn't matter how much we talk and how much we want to move on and go forward. And it's hard for older generations. No offense to everyone over a certain age. But when you're young and you look at the future and you know that you want this planet and this society, shared humanity society that we are all living in, we want it to be better. We want it to be better for us. We want it to be better for our children. And that's why, especially with the youth delegates, I found the common language. I found the common goals, the common aspirations. And it was much easier to communicate with youth and to collaborate and to be excited about what we can achieve together, which of course opened also a possibility to learn more about each other, to share who I am, where I'm coming from, and all the complexity that it involves. With young people, it's more possible. And that's why I think that the diplomacy of the future will count on actions, will count on entrepreneurship. Countries who have the power to work together to come up with solutions and not just talking, because the UN, they talk too much and they do too little. But I think that the young people of our days, we are not indifferent. We care and we are moving forward, and we're not waiting for everyone, and we're not feeling obligated to the opinions that are holding us back for years and years. We are fresh, we are motivated, and I believe in that change. Youth will be the agents of change, and I'm so happy to be part of it, and I'm so happy for the opportunity to promote these kind of amazing initiatives with Israel and Morocco. And I really see that connecting the people and making sure we have projects together, that will build a new Middle East. Actions, do projects together, build solutions together. That's what I believe in.
Amen. Thank you so much, Ruth, for this very honest conversation and sharing with us what are some of the challenges that you've been wrestling with and that you continue to find solutions for. Next, I would like to go back to Omar. Omar, if he can hear us, see us.
Hi.
Beautiful. There you are.
Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
Omar. How are you?
How are you? How are you doing?
Fantastic.
We're doing well.
Welcome.
Good to have you with
Thank you.
us.
Thank you. Thank you for
So
having
I've already
me.
introduced you, but I'm just going to quickly remind people that you're the executive director of Association Jeunesse Tamdult and a consultant for civil society organizations, among many, many other things. So, Ahmad, I would like to start with a question about civil society, specifically in rural spaces and peripheral communities. How does the civil society landscape and infrastructure look like in rural communities? And what are the biggest priorities for civil society organizations that work outside of urban centers today in Morocco?
First of all, I would like to thank you for having me today. Um, uh, for my experience, like as a civil society activist here in Morocco, I can say that like based on declaration of a foreign minister of justice. He said that in Morocco we have like more than 300,000 associations. So we have a very diverse, dynamic, and active civil society in Morocco. But as Shama said, asked about the civil society in the rural areas, the thing that I would emphasize is like we have like very active civil society or organizations or associations like in rural areas in Morocco who are working on like sustainable development. They working for like to conduct like projects on electricity, water. Like there are associations who manage to make roads like to their douars or their communities or their towns. So we have a very like active, as I said, a very active civil society organizations. But the thing is, a lot of these associations are like still have like all the old mentality or the old amateurism, if I can say, in the civil society like work. We are still leaning or on our traditions. Many of the associations are not like that professional, but in terms of motivation, in terms of dedication, of engagement, we have like we can say that we have a very strong one. But in terms of the professional, if I can say, civil society organization, maybe in my perspective, it's not like scientific study or something, but like as I see it, like we have around like 2,000 or 3,000 professional, if I can say, like with internal regulations or internal procedures, who like can work on bigger projects, who have staff, who have like offices, who have like people who work with them as direct staff members. But in general, as I said, we have a very diverse civil society. Many of them work like in, as I said, in development, but we have cultural organizations, like we have association for women issues, women empowerment, human rights, mountain rights, like people who are indigenous people, if you can say that, people who work on education, environment. So yeah, it's a very diverse, very active civis between like Moroccans and other nations. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Ahmad. And I just want to put this out there. Many Israelis are afraid that maybe able to find a strong civil society network in Morocco. Can you walk us a little bit through the civil society community in Morocco and why it's different than, let's say, the civil society in other places in the Middle East and North Africa? What is it about Moroccan NGOs that could facilitate collaboration with Israeli NGOs and Israeli individuals?
Like the thing is, like here in Morocco, like we have the first like civil society organization in the 30s, if we can say, the last century, like during the period of colonialism. And we like the dynamic of civil society like to start like to grow in the 90s, because we had many partnerships with international organizations, especially from Europe, from the EU. But when the civil society in Morocco like grow or like start like to grow is after the national initiative of human development in the المبادرة الوطنية للتنمية البشرية. This initiative like gave a big opportunity like for civil society organizations to get access to funding, to trainings, to empowerment, to capacity building. So with this, as I said, with characteristics, with these capacities, like civil society organizations in Morocco, like now work with different stakeholders, different partners from Europe, from the US, from Asia, from Africa even. But like to be frank, like this is a huge step like for Moroccan organizations like to collaborate and to work with the Israelis and the Israeli organizations. Like we now we have this agreement between the two countries. We can like strengthen these relationships. We can build these networks and experiences, and to share these experiences with each other, and to collaborate for the better of our citizens, of our nations. So yeah, for my perspective, in Morocco we have these kind of organizations who can work positively with the Israeli organizations as well, and I believe that in Israel we surely there are a lot of organizations who can come to Morocco and build these partnerships and collaborate with each other for the benefit of our beloved countries.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And Amar, one last thing. Your organization is based in Agadir, correct? So
Yes.
I want you to tell our audience why they should perhaps step away from Casablanca and Marrakesh and go to places like Agadir. Agadir used to have a notable Jewish community. And unfortunately, in 1960, there was the Agadir earthquake, which was really devastating for the city. So people left, especially from the Jewish community, left with that kind of trauma and shock after the earthquake, and never want to go back to Agadir. But tell our audience a little bit about just how much has changed in Agadir and why they should move away from the big urban metropolitan areas to check out places like Agadir, which is a big city as well today.
Yes, yeah. And now Agadir is the center of Morocco, and one of the beautiful cities. I'm here for more than 3 years now, and I'm loving the city. I'm planning to stay here longer. We have the beach, we have the weather, like the best weather ever in the country. Yeah, this trauma, as Shema said. But believe me if I said that Agadir is one of the very welcoming city, like very diverse city. You can have Amazigh people, like Sahrawi people, like people from the north of the country, people from all over the country. We have a lot of tourists. We have a lot of infrastructures like hotels and like places where to forget yourself from stress, from like the pressure of life. I cannot say that Agadir is the best city in the country, but for me is, and I ask people, or I invite people to visit the city and to come and to enjoy the dishes, and to enjoy amlu and argan and a lot of things that Agadir is very special city, like to have these kind of things.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
You know, Agadir is
Yeah.
a very popular restaurant chain here in Israel.
Exactly, indeed. I've had it many times.
I haven't because it's not kosher, but it looks good.
Yeah, they're famous for their Moroccan bread.
Oh yeah.
And there you go, people. There you have it. It's Agadir is the new Tel Aviv.
So if you
Yeah,
can go to Agadir in Morocco, then go to at least the Agadir restaurant.
yeah, yeah.
No, let's encourage people to go to Morocco.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Omar. It's been a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful,
Thank you
fascinating
for
stuff. Thank you. And it gives this whole session, what you had to say, Omar, and this whole session has really given me. I think it's the most exciting session because this is the future. It's developing the next generation. It's developing youth cooperation, and there's so much that our countries can do together in this regard. Now that we've been physical neighbors, more or less, and now we can be neighbors as far as the relations between the countries. And so I'm very excited about all of this.
Very excited as well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I just want to, it's not really a question from someone in our audience, but it's an announcement from Josh Berman, who says that anyone needing help with startup entry to New York or the US can contact him at me@joshforisrael@gmail.com. And unfortunately, we were supposed to be joined by another friend who is a really exceptional recent graduate from Al Akhawain University. Unfortunately, her internet isn't working well, so she won't be able to join us today, but hopefully next time, because on our next discussion, we will be focusing on academia and geopolitics. Dan, any questions before I move on?
No, I think this has been a fantastic session. As usual.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this event or learned something new, please share it with your community. You can find this discussion or previous ones on Sharaka's YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to follow Sharaka and myself for all the updates, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any specific questions or if you want to get involved or recommend someone for a future talk. My email is shamamishtali@gmail.com. My Facebook is my first and last name, and my Instagram is Millennial Moore, and Twitter is C.Mishtali. Our next event is going to focus on academia and geopolitics, which is going to be really exciting, and we'll have an incredible panel with us next week. So it'll be at the same place, the same time, so I hope to see you guys there.
Join us, and of course, remind everyone that Sharaka is a non-partisan, non-politically affiliated, non-governmental, and non-profit. Any other nons did I forget? And we are working to shape a new Middle East together, strategic partners, leaders from the Abraham Accords countries, from the UAE, from Bahrain, from Morocco, and from Israel, and any other allies.
Is all I'm thinking.
Sorry?
Is it non-kosher?
Non-kosher. We're definitely kosher or halal, or not, whatever people want to be. Working together to try to shape a new region based on the Abraham Accords and really translate this to an accessible level so that everyone can learn about it, benefit from it, and see that we're really trying to take advantage of this incredible opportunity. So if you like what you saw and you want to help us expand our efforts, we invite you to contact us. You can find us on our website, sharakango.com, or you can reach out through our various social media accounts, or you can email me personally, Dan, D-A-N, at sharakango.com, and we would be glad to get any support you want to offer. And of course, follow our accounts, promote our activities, because at the end of the day, I think we're all in here trying to make this region a better place, a more prosperous and stable place for all of us. So thank you, Shama.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you guys for joining us.
And we'll see you all next week.
Exactly. Take care.